What happens when everything you think you know is turned upside down by an unexpected act of kindness? This is a story about the things we overlook and the hidden strength found in the smallest actions. Let's dive into this heartwarming journey of growth, realization, and selfless sacrifice. Gary Clay had always been seen as the definition of success. As CEO of Summit Tech, a rapidly growing tech company, he was used to seeing things go according to his well-planned strategies. His polished suits, sharp business skills, and flawless leadership made him the ideal figure everyone aspired to be in the corporate world. His days were packed with meetings, reports, and presentations. To him, business was simple. Success was for those who worked hard and stayed focused. But in his pursuit of success, Gary had lost something important: human connection. The employees of Summit Tech were just faces to him. He knew their names, titles, and performance numbers, but he didn't truly know them. Their feelings, struggles, or the little sacrifices they made every day to keep the company running. One rainy Thursday afternoon, as Gary walked through the office, something caught his eye. Near the break room stood one of his employees, Jake Harris. Jake was someone who blended into the background. He was in his early 30s, quiet, always going above and beyond his work, but never speaking up for himself. He'd been with the company for years, always fixing technical issues before they even became problems. But that day, Jake stood by a table, holding an envelope. Curious, Gary walked over. "Jake," he called, his voice calm but with authority. Jake turned, a small smile on his face as he greeted his boss. "Good afternoon, sir." Gary noticed the envelope Jake was holding. It wasn't the usual company paperwork. It was thick, almost like a personal letter with a fancy seal on the front. "What's that?" Gary asked. Jake hesitated, his gaze dropping to the envelope before he looked back up at Gary. His smile faded. "It's a letter from home," he said quietly. "I need to send it today." Gary nodded, not thinking much of it. He'd seen Jake busy before, and it didn't seem unusual for him to have personal things to deal with. But then something strange happened. Before Gary could walk away, a soft but clear voice echoed from the other side of the room. "I need to talk to you, Jake." Gary turned his head to see Ryan, the company's COO, standing at the door with a serious look on his face. Ryan was a strong figure, always confident and in charge. The two men exchanged a brief look before Ryan made his way toward Jake. Gary wasn't sure what to expect, but what happened next left him speechless. "Is everything okay with you?" Ryan asked, his voice softer than usual. Jake looked down, gripping the envelope tighter in his hands. It's my daughter," Jake said, his voice breaking slightly. "She's been really sick. I've been trying to handle everything here, but the doctors told me today I might need to take some time off to be with her." Gary stood frozen, trying to process what he was hearing. Jake had always been the quiet one. He always seemed like a man who had it all together. He never asked for time off, never complained about long hours, always worked late. But now, it was clear that his world was falling apart, and no one had noticed. Gary was about to speak, but before he could, Ryan spoke again. "Jake, I think you should take the time you need," Ryan said firmly. "Family comes first." Jake looked up, but his face showed no joy. "I don't have the luxury of taking time off," he replied, his voice barely a whisper. "I'm the only one earning in my family. If I leave, it'll be a strain on everything. I can't. I'll manage." Gary's heart sank. He hadn't expected this. Not from Jake. The guy who always showed up early, never questioned authority, and quietly did his job with dedication. Jake was sacrificing his personal life for the company, his own family for the sake of his work, and no one had ever noticed. But what happened next left Gary completely shaken. Jake turned to Ryan and handed him the envelope. "Please send this for me," he said. It's the last thing I can do for her." Ryan took the envelope with a solemn nod, understanding the situation's seriousness. As he walked away, Gary felt a heavy silence between him and Jake. He knew something had to change. That evening, After a long day at the office, Gary returned to his office. But he couldn't shake what had happened. He had witnessed a sacrifice, an unimaginable burden, and he couldn't help but feel guilty for not noticing sooner. Jake had quietly carried the weight of the world, silently putting everything on the line for his family, while the company, his company, had taken him for granted. Now it was clear that something had to change. Gary walked over to his desk and grabbed his phone. His mind was racing. He knew what he had to do. Without a second thought, he dialed Jake's number. The phone rang for a few moments before Jake picked up. "Jake," Gary said, his voice calm but urgent. "You're taking the time off. Your family needs you. Don't worry about anything here. We'll handle it." Jake was silent for a moment before a soft, shaky voice came through the line. "Sir, I don't know what to say. I can't leave." "You can," Gary insisted, "and you will. Family comes first. We'll take care of the rest. You've done more than enough for this company." It was then that Jake broke down. The tears that had been hidden so well for so long came pouring out. "I didn't know what to do," he whispered. "I thought if I asked, I'd lose my job, but I don't want to lose my daughter." Gary's heart broke for him. In that moment, he realized the true weight of leadership. Leadership wasn't just about profits and growth. It was about caring for the people who made those things possible. It was about recognizing the sacrifices people made and the struggles they fought silently. "I'll make sure you're taken care of," Gary said, his voice filled with determination. "Go be with your family." The next day, Gary made an announcement to the entire company. He spoke about Jake, his dedication, and the importance of caring for those who care for us. He introduced a new company policy: paid family leave for all employees, no matter their position. No one would ever have to choose between work and family again. Gary Clay, the CEO, had learned the true meaning of leadership. It wasn't found in quarterly reports or balance sheets. It was in the sacrifices we make for each other. From that day forward, Jake Harris wasn't just an employee at Summit Tech. He was a hero. Sometimes the greatest leaders aren't the ones who make the loudest speeches or have the most impressive titles. They are the ones who listen, who care, and who are willing to change the world for the better, even in the smallest of ways. True leadership is about recognizing that every sacrifice, no matter how quiet, deserves to be acknowledged. It's not about flashy speeches or impressive titles, but about listening, caring, and making changes that improve the world, even in small ways. The story shows how Gary learned that leadership means supporting those who support us, like Jake, who silently sacrificed for his family. Gary introduced a new company policy: paid family leave for all employees, ensuring no one would have to choose between work and family again. From that moment on, Jake became a hero in the company, and Gary's understanding of leadership was forever changed. That's the story, everyone. I hope you enjoyed it. It was a pleasure sharing it with you all. Don't forget to comment below and let me know where you're watching from. It's always fun to see how far these stories reach. And if you haven't already, please hit that subscribe button for more amazing stories, tips, and tricks. Thanks for watching.